Vin Diesel was a man who had everything: fame, fortune, and fans all over the world. He was known for his tough guy roles in action movies where he drove fast cars, fought bad guys, and saved the day. But behind the scenes, Vin wasn't feeling as invincible as he appeared on screen. Fame had its perks, sure, but it also came with a lot of noise. Flashy parties, constant attention, and people always wanting something from him. After years of living in the spotlight, Vin started to feel disconnected from the real world. He missed the simplicity of everyday life, where people weren't trying to impress him or get close to him because of his name. One evening, while sitting alone in his luxurious home, Vin found himself staring at an old photograph. It was taken during his early days before Hollywood fame, a picture of him working as a bouncer at a club in New York City. Back then, life was raw, unpredictable, and full of challenges. He remembered how he used to interact with people from all walks of life without pretense or judgment. Those memories sparked something inside him. What if he could go back to that? Not forever, but just for a little while. To experience life outside the bubble of stardom. The idea hit him like lightning. What if he could live incognito, blending into the crowd like any other person? He wanted to hear stories from ordinary people, the kind you don't see in headlines or red carpets. People whose lives were messy, complicated, and beautiful in their own way. The thought excited him. For once, he wouldn't be Vin Diesel, movie star. He'd simply be Mike, a regular guy trying to make ends meet. But how could someone like Vin pull off such a disguise? Everyone knew his face, or so he thought. Determined to try, Vin spent weeks planning his transformation. First, he grew out his facial hair, letting thick stubble cover his usually clean-shaven jawline. Next, he traded his designer clothes for worn-out jeans, flannel shirts, and work boots. To complete the look, he bought a plain baseball cap and sunglasses that hid most of his features. When he looked in the mirror, even he barely recognized himself. Now came the hard part: choosing a job. If he was going to disappear into the fabric of everyday life, he needed a role that would keep him moving, meeting new people, and experiencing different parts of the country. That's when the idea struck him. A truck driver. Truck drivers crisscrossed America, stopping at diners, gas stations, and small towns along the way. They were invisible yet essential, carrying goods across highways while witnessing slices of life others might overlook. Perfect. With a fake ID and a rented semi-truck under the name Mike Johnson, Vin set off on his adventure. His first few days were nerve-wracking. Every time another driver honked or waved, he wondered if they somehow recognized him. At rest stops, he avoided making eye contact too long, afraid someone might piece together his true identity. But as the miles rolled by, Vin began to relax. No one paid much attention to a scruffy-looking trucker sipping coffee in the corner of a diner or pumping gas at midnight. For the first time in years, he felt free. Each day brought new landscapes and new faces. From the deserts of Arizona to the rolling hills of Tennessee, Vin soaked in the beauty of the open road. He listened to country music on the radio, ate greasy food from roadside diners, and chatted with fellow truckers about everything from engine repairs to family troubles. These conversations reminded him of what he loved most about humanity: the ability to connect, share, and find common ground despite differences. One afternoon, after hours of driving through endless stretches of highway, Vin decided to take a break. He spotted a small diner nestled between two gas stations off Interstate 40 in Arkansas. The sign above the door read, "Mama Joe's Kitchen," in faded letters, and the parking lot was filled with pickup trucks and motorcycles. Curious, Vin parked his rig and stepped inside. The smell of fried chicken and freshly brewed coffee greeted him as he pushed open the creaky door. Inside, the diner buzzed with activity. Locals sat in booths laughing and talking, while waitresses hustled back and forth carrying plates piled high with food. Vin slid onto a stool at the counter and ordered a slice of apple pie. As he waited, he struck up a conversation with the waitress, a middle-aged woman named Carla. She had a warm smile and a no-nonsense attitude, the kind of person who could run circles around anyone in her kitchen. "First time here?" Carla asked, pouring him a cup of coffee. "Yeah," Vin replied, keeping his voice low and gruff. Just passing through. Carla nodded knowingly. Well, welcome to Mama Joe's. Best pie in 3 counties, if I do say so myself. They talked casually about the weather, the road, and the quirks of small-town life. Then Carla mentioned her niece Tasha, who often stopped by the diner after school. She's a good kid, Carla said with pride, always smiling even though life hasn't been easy for her. Something in Carla's tone caught Vin's attention. What do you mean? He asked. Carla hesitated, glancing around as if unsure whether to continue. Finally, she shrugged. Let's just say she's got grit. You'd have to meet her to understand. That night, as Vin climbed back into his truck, he couldn't stop thinking about Carla's words. Who was this girl and what made her stand out in a place like this? Little did he know, their paths were about to cross. And his entire journey would take a turn he never expected. The diner was quiet that evening, save for the hum of fluorescent lights and the occasional clink of dishes being stacked in the kitchen. Vin sat at the counter, nursing a second cup of coffee as he waited for Carla to return from her rounds. He had already eaten his apple pie, but something kept him rooted to the spot. Maybe it was curiosity about the girl Carla mentioned, Tasha, or maybe it was just the comforting rhythm of the diner itself. Whatever it was, Vin didn't want to leave just yet. As the clock ticked closer to closing time, the door swung open, and a young girl walked in. She couldn't have been more than 15 or 16, with curly black hair pulled back into a messy ponytail and a backpack slung over one shoulder. Her jeans were faded, and her sneakers looked like they'd seen better days, but her smile lit up the room. She greeted everyone warmly, Carla behind the counter, a couple sitting in a booth near the window, even Vin, who gave her a polite nod in return. That's Tasha, Carla said softly as she refilled Vin's coffee. My niece. Vin watched as Tasha slid into a booth by the window and pulled out a notebook. She flipped through the pages, scribbling something down before pausing to glance out the window. There was something magnetic about her presence, a quiet confidence that seemed unusual for someone her age. Vin found himself intrigued. Does she come here often? He asked casually, trying not to sound too eager. Almost every day after school, Carla replied. Says the diner feels like home. Plus, I let her charge meals when money's tight. Vin raised an eyebrow. Things rough for her? Carla sighed, leaning against the counter. You could say that. Her mom and dad are, well, let's just say they're not around right now. She lives with her grandma, who does her best, but it ain't easy. Still, Tasha doesn't complain. Never has. Kid's got heart. Something about Carla's words stuck with Vin. He had grown up in a tough neighborhood himself, raised by a single mother who worked tirelessly to provide for him and his siblings. He knew what it meant to struggle, to feel like the odds were stacked against you. But he also knew how powerful determination could be. And if Tasha was anything like Carla described, she sounded like someone worth getting to know. Over the next few weeks, Vin made it a point to stop at Mama Joe's diner whenever his route allowed. Sometimes he'd grab a quick bite. Other times he'd linger longer, sipping coffee and pretending to read old newspapers while keeping an eye on Tasha. At first, their interactions were brief, polite hellos and small talk about the weather or the food. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, they began to form a connection. One afternoon, after noticing Tasha sketching in her notebook, Vin decided to strike up a conversation. What are you drawing? He asked, sliding into the booth across from her. Tasha looked up, startled but not annoyed. Oh, nothing special, she said, quickly closing the notebook. Just some notes for school. Vin smiled. Schoolwork, huh? Must be important if you're putting this much effort into it. She hesitated for a moment, then opened the notebook again, revealing detailed diagrams of the human brain. I want to be a doctor someday, she admitted shyly. A neurosurgeon, actually. Vin leaned forward, genuinely impressed. That's quite the goal. What made you choose that? Tasha shrugged, though her eyes sparkled with excitement. I've always been fascinated by how the brain works. Like, how does it control everything we do? And what happens when something goes wrong? I want to help people fix those problems. Her passion was infectious, and Vin found himself smiling despite himself. That's incredible. You'll make a great doctor. For the first time, Tasha seemed unsure. Maybe, she murmured, looking down at her hands. But it's hard, you know? My grades are good, but college costs so much. And scholarships. She trailed off, shaking her head. It's kind of overwhelming sometimes. Vin nodded sympathetically. I get it. Life can throw a lot at you. But if anyone can handle it, it's you. They talked for nearly an hour that day, sharing stories about their lives. Tasha told him about growing up in a small apartment with her grandmother, who worked long hours cleaning offices to keep food on the table. She spoke about the challenges of balancing schoolwork with household chores and the loneliness that came with having parents who weren't around. Yet through it all, she remained hopeful, determined to create a better future for herself and her family. In turn, Vin shared bits and pieces of his own past. How he'd grown up biracial in New York City, facing discrimination and doubt from others. He told her about working odd jobs to support his family and pursuing acting because it was the only thing that made him feel alive. People will tell you that your dreams are impossible, he said earnestly. Don't listen to them. If you believe in yourself, you can achieve anything. By the time Vin left the diner that night, he felt a sense of purpose he hadn't experienced in years. Meeting Tasha reminded him of why he'd embarked on this journey in the first place, to connect with real people and hear their stories. But more than that, he realized he had the power to make a difference in someone's life, even in small ways. Over the following weeks, Vin continued visiting the diner, always making sure to sit near Tasha. Their conversations became a highlight of his trips, offering glimpses into a world far removed from Hollywood glamour. He learned about her favorite subjects in school, biology and math, her love for classic rock music, she adored Fleetwood Mac, and her dream of traveling the world, someday. In return, he regaled her with tales of his adventures on set, though he carefully avoided mentioning any blockbuster films or famous co-stars. Through it all, Vin marveled at Tasha's resilience. Despite the obstacles she faced, financial struggles, societal biases, and personal hardships, she refused to let bitterness take root. Instead, she channeled her energy into her studies and her dreams, proving that hope could thrive even in the toughest conditions. One evening, as they sat together in the dimly lit diner, Tasha turned to Vin with a thoughtful expression. You know, she said quietly. You're really easy to talk to. Most adults don't listen like you do. Vin chuckled, touched by her words. Well, I've been told I'm a pretty good listener. Guess I've had a lot of practice. Tasha smiled, but there was a flicker of sadness in her eyes. I wish more people were like you. Sometimes it feels like no one believes in me except Grandma. Vin reached across the table, placing a reassuring hand on hers. I believe in you, Tasha. Don't ever forget that. Her smile widened and, for a moment, Vin felt like he'd done something truly meaningful. Little did he know their bond was about to deepen in ways neither of them could have anticipated. As the days turned into weeks, Vin found himself looking forward to his stops at Mama Joe's diner more than anything else on his journey. There was something about Tasha's presence that made him feel grounded, like he was finally living life, instead of just observing it from a distance. Each time they met, their conversations grew deeper, and Vin began to see glimpses of the struggles she faced, but also the strength that kept her moving forward. One evening, after a long day of driving, Vin parked his truck in the diner's lot and stepped inside. The place was quieter than usual, with only a few customers scattered around. Tasha sat in her usual booth by the window, hunched over her notebook. Her face was scrunched in concentration as she scribbled furiously, pausing occasionally to glance at a battered textbook propped open beside her. Vin grabbed a cup of coffee from Carla and slid into the seat across from her. Still working hard, I see, he said, gesturing toward her notes. Tasha looked up, startled but smiling. Oh, hey Mike. Yeah, I'm trying to finish this chapter before tomorrow's test. Vin peered over at the textbook. It was filled with complex diagrams of neurons and synapses, along with explanations of how the brain processed information. He whistled softly. That's some heavy stuff. You sure you're not aiming too high? She laughed, though there was a hint of defensiveness in her tone. People say that a lot. They think someone like me shouldn't dream so big. Someone like you? Vin echoed, raising an eyebrow. Tasha hesitated, fiddling with the edge of her notebook. You know, someone who doesn't have much. Someone whose parents aren't around to help. Someone who looks like me. Her words hung in, the air heavy with meaning. Vin leaned back, studying her carefully. He had seen prejudice firsthand during his own childhood. Being biracial in New York City hadn't been easy, and he understood the weight of those unspoken barriers. But what struck him most was the way Tasha carried herself despite it all. She didn't let bitterness consume her. Instead, she channeled her energy into proving people wrong. You know what I think? Vin said after a moment. I think people who doubt you are just scared. Scared? Tasha repeated, tilting her head. Yeah, he continued. They're scared because they can't imagine doing what you're doing. Most people settle for less because it's easier. But you're out here chasing something bigger even when the odds are against you. That takes guts. For a moment, Tasha didn't respond. Then, slowly, a smile spread across her face. No one's ever said that to me before. Well, maybe more people should, Vin replied with a grin. Because it's true. Their conversation shifted gears after that. Tasha opened up about the challenges she faced, not just financially, but socially. She told him how classmates teased her for being poor, calling her bookworm or nerd because she spent her free time studying instead of hanging out. Some teachers dismissed her ambitions, assuming she wouldn't amount to much given her circumstances. Even strangers sometimes gave her sideways glances, judging her based on the color of her skin or the clothes she wore. It's like no matter what I do, I have to work twice as hard to prove myself, she admitted, her voice tinged with frustration. Sometimes it feels like the world is telling me I don't belong. Vin listened intently, his heart aching for her. He knew that feeling all too well, the constant pressure to prove your worth, to fight against stereotypes and low expectations. But he also knew that perseverance could break down walls even if it took time. Let me tell you something, he said, leaning closer. The people who doubt you aren't worth your energy. Focus on the ones who believe in you, like your grandma and Carla and... He paused, giving her a small smile. And me. Tasha blinked, surprised by his sincerity. You barely know me, Mike. Why do you care so much? Vin thought about that for a moment. How could he explain without revealing his true identity? Finally, he settled on a simple truth. Because I've been where you are. I know what it's like to feel like the whole world is against you. And I also know that dreams like yours, they're special. They deserve to be fought for. His words seemed to resonate with her. For the rest of the evening, they talked about everything from study strategies to coping mechanisms for dealing with negativity. Vin shared tips on staying focused under pressure, drawing from his own experiences as an actor navigating the competitive world of Hollywood. In return, Tasha showed him her notebook, which was filled not only with academic notes but also sketches and doodles she'd created during moments of inspiration. I draw when I get overwhelmed, she explained, flipping through the pages. It helps me clear my mind. Vin marveled at her creativity. One page featured intricate drawings of brain cells, while another depicted a hopeful sunrise bursting through storm clouds. These are amazing, he said sincerely. You're talented, Tasha, don't forget that. By the time Vin left the diner that night, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. Meeting Tasha wasn't just a coincidence. It was a reminder of why he'd chosen to step away from fame in the first place. Here was a girl who embodied resilience, determination, and hope, qualities that inspired him to keep pushing forward in his own life. He realized he couldn't just walk away from her story. He needed to do something, anything, to help her succeed. Over the next few days, Vin racked his brain for ways to support Tasha without revealing his true identity. He decided to start small. Using part of the earnings from his trucking job, he anonymously paid for her enrollment in an online tutoring program specializing in STEM subjects. He figured it would give her access to resources she might not otherwise have, helping her stay ahead in her studies. At the same time, he reached out to a friend in Los Angeles who ran a scholarship foundation, explaining Tasha's situation and asking if there was any way she could apply secretly. Meanwhile, Vin continued mentoring her during his visits to the diner. They talked about goal setting, time management, and the importance of surrounding yourself with positive influences. He encouraged her to visualize her future self, a confident neurosurgeon walking into an operating room, ready to save lives. If you can see it, he told her, you can achieve it. Tasha soaked up every word, her eyes lighting up with excitement whenever they discussed her dreams. She began sharing updates on her progress, telling Vin about the science fair, project she was working on, and the volunteer hours she'd logged at the local clinic. Each success brought her closer to her goal, and Vin couldn't help but feel proud of her. Then one evening, Tasha arrived at the diner with news that nearly knocked Vin off his stool. She slid into the booth, her face glowing with joy. "Mike, guess what?" she exclaimed. "I got accepted into a summer science camp." Vin stared at her, stunned. "Are you serious? That's incredible. It's at a university in Texas," she continued, practically bouncing in her seat. "They picked students from all over the country, and I made the cut. Isn't that crazy?" Vin grinned, genuinely thrilled for her. "Crazy? No, it's amazing. You earned this, Tasha. You worked your tail off, and now you're getting recognized for it." Tears welled up in Tasha's eyes as she hugged him tightly. "Thank you, Mike. I don't know what I'd do without your support." Patted her shoulder, feeling a lump form in his throat. "You don't need to thank me. Just keep doing what you're doing. The world needs more people like you." As they celebrated her achievement, Vin realized something profound. Tasha wasn't just inspiring him. She was changing him. Through her courage and determination, she reminded him of the power of belief, not just in others, but in oneself. And though he still hadn't revealed his true identity, he knew that their friendship had already altered the course of both their lives, forever. As the days passed, Vin and Tasha's bond grew stronger. Their conversations at the diner became a ritual, a safe space where they could share their thoughts, fears, and dreams without judgment. Vin found himself eagerly anticipating these moments, not just because of Tasha's infectious optimism, but also because she reminded him of the resilience he once had as a young man, chasing his own dreams. Yet beneath her bright smile and unwavering determination, Vin began to notice cracks in Tasha's armor, subtle signs of the struggles she faced daily. One evening, as they sat together in the dimly lit booth, Tasha seemed quieter than usual. Her notebook lay closed on the table, untouched. She stared out the window, her reflection barely visible in the glass. Vin studied her face, sensing that something was weighing heavily on her mind. "You okay?" he asked gently, breaking the silence. Tasha blinked, startled, then forced a small smile. "Yeah, I'm fine, just thinking." Vin leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "Thinking about what?" She hesitated, fidgeting with the edge of her sleeve. "It's stupid," she muttered, avoiding his gaze. "Try me." Vin replied, his tone warm and encouraging. "I've heard plenty of stupid things in my life. Trust me, you won't shock me." That earned a faint laugh from Tasha, and after a moment she sighed. "It's just, sometimes I feel like I'm fighting a losing battle, you know? Like no matter how hard I try, there's always something holding me back." Vin nodded slowly, urging her to continue. "What do you mean?" Tasha took a deep breath, as if gathering the courage to speak. "At school, it's like everyone expects me to fail. Teachers act surprised when I get good grades, like they didn't think I was capable. And some kids, well, they make fun of me for being poor. They call me names or say I'll never amount to anything because of where I come from." Her voice trembled slightly, and Vin felt a pang of anger. Not at Tasha, but at the world that treated her so unfairly. He reached across the table, placing a reassuring hand over hers. That's not your fault, Tasha. None of it is. People say cruel things because they're scared or jealous, but don't let them win. You're proving them wrong every single day. I know, she said softly, though doubt lingered in her eyes. But it's not just that. At home, things aren't easy either. Grandma works so hard, cleaning offices late into the night just to keep food on the table. She's tired all the time, and I hate seeing her like that. Sometimes I stay up worrying about whether we'll have enough money to pay rent, or if she'll get sick and can't work anymore. The weight of her words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Vin could see the toll it took on her. The sleepless nights, the constant anxiety, the pressure of trying to hold everything together while still pursuing her dreams. It broke his heart to think of someone so young carrying such a burden. And yet, he said quietly, you keep going. You show up to school, study late into the night, volunteer at the clinic. How do you do it? Tasha shrugged, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Because I have to. If I don't fight for my future, who will? Grandma sacrificed everything for me, and I owe it to her to make something of myself. I want to give her a better life someday, a life where she doesn't have to work herself to the bone just to survive. Her determination left Vin speechless. Here was a girl who refused to give up, even when the odds were stacked against her. She wasn't just surviving. She was thriving, using every obstacle as fuel to propel her forward. But Vin also knew that resilience came at a cost. The emotional toll of living under such strain could wear anyone down, no matter how strong they appeared on the outside. That's why I admire you so much, he said finally, his voice thick with emotion. You're doing something most people wouldn't even attempt. But listen to me, you don't have to carry this alone. There are people who care about you, who believe in you. Let us help you, Tasha. You deserve support. She looked at him, her expression softening. Like you? Exactly like me, Vin replied with a smile. And Carla, and your grandma, and anyone else lucky enough to know you. We're rooting for you, kid, don't forget that. For the first time that evening, Tasha smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that reached her eyes. Thanks, Mike. I don't know what I'd do without you. Over the next few weeks, Vin learned even more about the challenges Tasha faced. One afternoon, she told him about a recent incident at school where a group of students mocked her for wearing the same sweater 2 days in a row. They said I look like I live in a trash heap, she admitted, her voice trembling with embarrassment. I wanted to cry, but I didn't. I just walked away. Another time, she confided in him about the stress of applying for scholarships. Every application feels like rolling the dice, she explained. If I don't get one, I don't know how I'll afford college. It's like my whole future depends on this one shot. Despite these hardships, Tasha remained steadfast in her resolve. She spent countless hours studying, often staying up until midnight to review notes or practice problems. On weekends, she volunteered at the local clinic, shadowing doctors and learning as much as she could about medicine. When Vin asked her how she managed to balance everything, she simply shrugged. I don't really have a choice, she said matter-of-factly. If I want to succeed, I have to put in the work. Vin admired her tenacity, but he couldn't shake the feeling that she needed more than just encouragement. He wanted to lighten her load, to give her the tools and opportunities she deserved. So he decided to take action. Using connections from his anonymous scholarship foundation contact, Vin arranged for Tasha to receive mentorship from a retired neurosurgeon named Dr. Evelyn Carter. Through video calls and emails, Dr. Carter offered guidance on navigating the medical field, sharing advice on everything from coursework to career paths. Tasha lit up whenever she talked about their conversations, calling Dr. Carter her guardian angel. In addition to the mentorship, Vin anonymously covered Tasha's registration fees for the summer science camp she'd been accepted into. He knew firsthand how transformative such experiences could be, offering exposure to cutting-edge research and networking opportunities that might otherwise be out of reach. When Tasha received confirmation that her spot was secured, she hugged Vin tightly, tears streaming down her face. I don't know how to thank you, she whispered. You already have, Vin replied, his own eyes misty. By being brave enough to chase your dreams, you've inspired me more than you'll ever know." As Tasha prepared for her upcoming camp, Vin couldn't help but reflect on their journey together. Meeting her had reignited something within him, a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. In Hollywood, he was surrounded by glitz and glamour, but here, in this small Arkansas diner, he discovered true grit and grace. Tasha's story reminded him that greatness could emerge from the most unlikely places, fueled by passion, perseverance, and belief in oneself. Yet as proud as he was of Tasha, Vin knew there was still more he could do. His disguise as Mike had allowed him to connect with her on a deeply personal level, but part of him wondered if revealing his true identity might open doors for her in ways he hadn't considered. The thought weighed on him, tugging at his conscience. For now, though, he chose to focus on the present, to savor each moment with Tasha and celebrate her victories, no matter how small. Because in those fleeting hours at Mama Joe's diner, amidst the clatter of dishes and the hum of conversation, Vin realized he wasn't just helping Tasha fulfill her dreams. She was helping him rediscover his own humanity, and that was worth more than any movie role or accolade. The summer science camp was just a few days away, and Tasha was buzzing with excitement. She had spent hours packing her bag, carefully folding her clothes and organizing her notebooks, so everything would be ready for the trip. Every time Vin saw her at the diner, she couldn't stop talking about it. How she'd get to meet other kids who loved science as much as she did. How she'd have access to labs and equipment far beyond what her school offered. And how this might be the first step toward making her dream of becoming a neurosurgeon feel real. But there was also a flicker of nervousness in her eyes, one that Vin noticed even if Tasha tried to hide it. "What if I don't fit in?" she asked him one evening, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if they think I'm not smart enough?" Vin leaned back in his seat, studying her face. He knew exactly how she felt, that gnawing fear of being judged, of not measuring up. But he also knew Tasha well enough by now to understand that she was stronger than her doubts. "You've already proven yourself," he said firmly. "Getting into this camp wasn't easy. You earned your spot, that means you belong there." Tasha nodded slowly, though uncertainty lingered in her expression. "I guess so. And besides," Vin added with a grin, "you're smarter than half the people out there. Trust me, I've seen it firsthand." That made her laugh, and some of the tension melted away. Still, Vin could tell she needed more reassurance. So over the next couple of days, he shared stories from his own life, times when he'd doubted himself but pushed through anyway. He told her about auditioning for roles early in his career and facing rejection after rejection. How casting directors would tell him he didn't look right or sound right or act right. "But I kept showing up," he said, "because deep down I believed I had something to offer. And eventually, someone noticed." Tasha listened intently, soaking up every word. By the time their conversation ended, she seemed steadier, more confident. "Thanks, Mike," she said softly. "Talking to you always helps." On Tasha's last day at the diner before leaving for camp, Vin arrived earlier than usual. He parked his truck in the lot and stepped inside, carrying a small duffel bag slung over his shoulder. The diner was quiet, save for the soft hum of the jukebox playing an old country song in the corner. Tasha sat in her usual booth, flipping through a textbook while sipping a milkshake. When she saw Vin approach, she smiled brightly. "Hey, Mike, what's with the bag?" she asked, nodding toward the duffel. He chuckled, sliding into the seat across from her. "It's for you." "For me?" Tasha blinked, confused. Vin set the bag on the table and unzipped it, revealing a brand new laptop, a sleek tablet, and a stack of books about neuroscience and anatomy. Tasha gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "Mike, I can't accept this. This must have cost a fortune." "It's not about the money," Vin replied, his tone gentle but firm. "It's about giving you the tools you need to succeed. Think of it as an investment in your future, and trust me, you'll pay it back someday by changing lives as a doctor." Tears welled up in Tasha's eyes as she stared at the gifts. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. Vin said with a smile. Just promise me you'll use them to keep chasing your dreams. I promise, she whispered, hugging him tightly. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Tasha pulled away, wiping her tears. You're the best friend anyone could ask for, Mike. Seriously. Friend. The word struck Vin like a punch to the gut. In all the weeks they'd spent together, he'd never corrected her assumption that he was just another truck driver passing through town. Now, sitting here with her gratitude washing over him, he realized how much he'd come to care for her, not as a mentor or benefactor, but as someone who genuinely wanted to see her thrive. Yet part of him still felt guilty for keeping his true identity hidden. As the afternoon wore on, Vin found himself wrestling with a decision he'd been avoiding for weeks. Should he tell Tasha who he really was? On one hand, revealing his celebrity, status might open doors for her, connections, opportunities, resources she couldn't imagine. On the other hand, it risked ruining the authenticity of their friendship. What if she felt betrayed? What if she started seeing him differently, not as Mike, but as Vin Diesel, the Hollywood star? By the time the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting golden light through the diner windows, Vin had made up his mind. If their bond meant anything, it deserved honesty, even if it came with risks. Tasha, he said suddenly, his voice serious, there's something I need to tell you. She looked up, startled by the shift in his tone. What is it? Vin took a deep breath, then reached up and removed his baseball cap, letting his bald head catch the fading sunlight. For a moment, Tasha simply stared at him, her brow furrowed in confusion. Then her eyes widened and her jaw dropped. No way, she breathed, shaking her head in disbelief. Wait, you're Vin Diesel? Vin nodded, offering a sheepish smile. Guilty, as charged. For several seconds, Tasha sat frozen, her mind struggling to process what she was hearing. Finally, she burst out laughing, clutching her sides. Are you kidding me? All this time I thought you were just a truck driver named Mike. I know, Vin admitted, rubbing the back of his neck. And I'm sorry for lying to you. I didn't mean to deceive you. I just wanted to experience life without the distractions of fame. When I met you, I realized how special you are, and I didn't want anything to change that. Tasha shook her head, still grinning. This is insane. Like, completely unreal. Does Carla know? Does anyone else know? Nope, Vin replied. Just you. And now that you know, I hope it doesn't change how you see me. Because to me, you're not just some kid I met at a diner. You're someone I truly believe in. Tasha's laughter softened into a warm smile. It doesn't change anything, Mike, or should I say Vin. You've been there for me when no one else was. You've believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself. That's what matters. Her words hit Vin like a wave of relief. He hadn't realized how much he'd feared losing her trust, but hearing her say that erased any lingering doubt. Thank you, he said quietly. That means a lot. They spent the rest of the evening talking about everything, from Vin's rise to fame to Tasha's upcoming adventure at the science camp. At one point, Tasha joked about how she'd always wondered why Mike seemed so wise and worldly. Now it makes sense, she teased. You're basically action hero dad. Vin laughed, feeling lighter than he had in years. For the first time since stepping into this new persona, he felt completely himself. No masks, no pretenses, just two people sharing a genuine connection. When it was finally time for Tasha to leave, Vin walked her outside to her grandmother's car, which had arrived to take her to the bus station. As they stood under the dim glow of the diner's neon sign, Tasha turned to him with a grateful smile. Thank you for everything, Vin, she said, her voice filled with emotion. Not just for the gifts or the advice, but for believing in me. I won't let you down. I know you won't, Vin replied, pulling her into a tight hug. Go show them what you're made of, okay? As the car drove off into the night, Vin stood watching until its taillights disappeared around the bend. A strange mix of emotions swirled inside him, pride, sadness, and a renewed sense of purpose. Meeting Tasha had changed him in ways he never expected, reminding him of the power of kindness, empathy, and belief in others. As he climbed back into his truck and started the engine, Vin knew one thing for certain. This journey wasn't just about finding himself. It was about helping someone else find their way too. And in doing so, he'd discovered a truth that transcended fame or fortune. The greatest legacy we can leave behind is the impact we have on others' lives.